Hello everyone. So welcome to our course. So in this video presentation, I will be presenting the introduction of management. So I will be discussing the definition of management, the differentiation of efficiency from effectiveness. Okay, and then we'll be discussing also the different um, 5 M's in management as well as the process of management. So let's start with our discussion. All right, so in our video presentation, so I will be discussing the introduction of management. Okay, so let's take a look at the overview of management in this video presentation. Okay, so let us first try to define what is management. So basically, when we speak of management, it talks about the attainment of goals, okay, their attainment of goals in an effective and efficient manner through planning, organizing, leading, and controlling organizational resources. Okay, so basically, management is the process of working with people and resources to accomplish your organizational goals. So when we speak of your efficiency and effectiveness, effectiveness basically means it is your result. Okay, so you make the right decision and successfully carry them so that you achieve the organization's goal. So doing things right. Okay, it is your output or your end result. Efficiency, on the other hand, it means that you are doing things right. Okay, I'm sorry. Effectiveness is doing the right things. Sorry for that. But when we speak of efficiency, it is doing things right. Wherein you are going to produce a result with the minimal resources as possible. Okay, so in other words, you use resources wisely and cost effective or effectively. All right, so these are the four essential parts of management. We have first your planning. So when we speak of planning, of course, it is a process of setting objectives, okay, and determining in advance how the objectives will be met. We will discuss individually later on these management what's this or the main parts of management in our next discussions. Okay, so again, planning, you are setting objectives to determine in advance how your objectives will be met. Organizing, on the other hand, talks about delegating and coordinating tasks, okay, and allocating resources to achieve your objectives. In addition to that, when we speak of leading, it is a process of influencing employees to work toward achieving your objectives. And we have here controlling, wherein it is establishing and implementing mechanism to ensure that the objectives are achieved. All right, moving on. Let us now proceed to the elements of management. So according to Richard Daft, okay, an American organizational theorist and professor of management, there are basically four elements of the definition of management there. So in management, we mentioned earlier that management is working with people and resources to achieve organizational goals. So when we achieve organizational goals, it should be efficient and effective. okay, with the different functions of management, wherein we mention the different functions of management is planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. Okay, so we also need to make use of resources. Okay, so there are 5 M's of management resources. We have your manpower, okay, materials, money, machine, methods. Okay, in your economics, we mention these as your land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. So Daft, okay, as mentioned earlier, an American organizational theorist and professor of management, has given the equivalent of your 5 M's, wherein he mentioned human, okay, human resources, of course, financial, raw material, technological, and information. So these are the resources of management. So it has to be in an efficient and effective manner. So when we speak of efficiency, we mentioned it earlier, doing things right. Okay, so organizational efficiency refers to the amount of resources used to achieve an organizational goal. Effectiveness, on the other hand, it means that you are doing the right things. Okay. The degree to which the organization achieves a stated goal without reference to cost. There. Okay. All right. So moving on, when we speak naman of organization, okay, so it is actually a social entity that is goal-directed and deliberately structured. So again, organization, when we speak of organizational, social entity, deliberately structured and goal-oriented. What do we mean by this? So when we say social entity, it's comprised of 2 or more people working towards the achievement of a goal or a distinct purpose. Okay, it's deliberately structured because, okay, the organization is said to possess tasks that are divided among members that have, or these members have different responsibilities. Okay, so for their performance that are likewise coordinately or collectively assigned. There you go. All right, so let's talk about the management process. So we have here the process of management. So basically, we mentioned earlier that when we speak of management, you have to achieve an output or your goal, or you work towards the achievement of organizational goal. But in order to do that, you make use of resources. So we have here the 5 M's, uh, your manpower, your money, machines, okay, etc. So it is your input. For you to achieve your output, you need to have your input or your means, okay? So in order to achieve your organizational goals, you have to make use of the functions of management. Okay, we mentioned your planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. So in planning, you select the goals and ways to achieve them, and then you assign tasks or responsibilities, sorry, for the task to be accomplished. And of course, you have to influence or lead people or influence them to motivate them. And then you have to monitor, okay, and make corrections for you to achieve your organizational goals. So if one function does not work properly or is not working properly, you have to make sure that you go back. Okay, that's why we have here the arrow in the middle. Okay, there you go. So, for example, employees are not motivated enough, then you have to make sure, okay, that your employees are motivated to achieve your organizational goals. Okay, so this is the process of management. Okay, moving on. So there are three aspects of management. So management is a social process, okay, and it's concerned with developing relationship among people. Okay, management is responsible for making or creating interaction between people towards greater productivity and used for obtaining organizational goals. And management is also an integrating process. It brings, okay, together human, physical, financial resources to achieve organizational purposes or goals. And make sure also to understand that management is a continuous process. Okay, so management is concerned with constantly identifying the problems and solving these problems. Okay. All right, so let's talk about management skill, level, and roles. Okay, so in management, of course, we cannot go away from managers. So managers are doing the management of an organization. Okay, so a manager is someone whose primary activities are part of the management process. So a manager is someone who plans, organizes, leads, and control, okay, human resources, financial, physical, and informational resources. Okay, so let's talk about their responsibilities and the level of managers within the organization. So we have here your top managers, your middle managers, and your first line managers. Your top managers, who are these top managers? Could be your CEO, okay, your president, yan. So in the organization, okay, for example, in the hotel industry, who are your top managers? So these are probably the owner of the restaurant or the owner of the hotel industry. They are the CEOs or maybe the presidents of the organization. So they're responsible for the overall direction and operation of an organization. So they set organizational goals, okay, they define strategies, they also monitor external environment and implement decisions. We also have here the middle managers. So middle managers, for example, in um, what's this? In a hotel industry could be the manager of what's this? A marketing department, the manager of the human resource department, and sorry. So they're responsible for business units and major departments. So they translate executive orders. Executive orders from whom? From the top managers. So maybe the CEO would implement something, okay? They would like to implement a certain rule or regulation in the organization. So it is the job of the middle manager to execute or to implement this. Okay, so the top managers would plan, and it's the job of the middle manager to execute this order. Okay, and then they supervise the lower managers. So we have here the first line managers. So who are the first line managers? Perhaps these are the supervisors. Yan. Okay, so they're responsible for the production of goods and services. They apply rules and procedures, provide technical assistance, and of course, they motivate subordinates. Okay, there you go. All right, so the level of management, we mentioned it earlier. So we have the top level management. We also refer to them as the strategic level. The middle level management, it's coordinated level. The lower level management, operational level. So top management, they're responsible for making the long-term decision of the organization and the overall direction of the organization. Middle management, on the other hand, implements policies and plans that come from the top management. And then we have here the lower level management. So they are responsible for making um, short-term operating decisions. There you go. They are responsible for directing the daily task of the subordinates. Okay, moving on. So there you go. Okay, now let's take a look at horizontal differences. So we mentioned earlier the vertical differences of your manager, or the level of vertical level. Now let's talk about the horizontal differences naman. So we have functional managers. So they're responsible for departments. Okay, they perform single tasks or single task and have employees with similar training and skills. So they are also referred to as your line managers. Okay, there you go. So, for example, functional managers are in charge of different departments such as finance, human resource, okay, etc. General managers, on the other hand, are responsible for several departments. So, your functional managers, they're responsible for um, uh, performing a single task of a certain department. On the other hand, when you say general managers, they are responsible naman to oversee the different departments. Okay, so they perform different functions. They're in charge of contained or self-contained divisions and for all functional departments within. Okay, so general manager, for example, in charge of the boss of the manager of the finance department, the human resource department, yan. So boss nila si general manager. Okay, now let's talk about the different skills in management. So we have here conceptual, human relations, and technical. If you're a manager, you're supposed to possess all of these skills. Okay, so conceptual skills, the ability to identify and resolve problems for the benefit of the organization. So we have here the example, the dean of a college who spearhead a long-term plan for the department. Okay, or the manager of a certain restaurant, okay, who spearhead a long-term plan for the restaurant. Okay, maybe introduce um, new policy for the restaurant or for the hotel industry. Okay, human relations, you have to have the ability to work with and through other people, okay, to work effectively in a group. So an example here, human resource manager meeting with staff to work on a new development program for the rank and file employees. Okay, technical skills, this is also very important. The ability to perform a specialized task involving a particular method or process. So we have here an example. But in the hotel industry, for example, technical skill, like maybe if you are the head chef, okay, or if you are a chef, you have the ability to um, what to introduce a menu okay, that's unique. Yan. You have the skill to experiment new menu daily or menus daily, diba? Yan. Okay. So in your first line management, okay, so if you notice here, the technical skill is actually bigger. So if you are in the first line management, you need to have technical skill more than your human or conceptual skill. But if you are in the middle management, you need to have bigger human skill or human relation skill there. Why? Because you are responsible for implementing the the decisions that come from the top management. But if you are in the top management, as you can see here, your conceptual skill is bigger. Why? Because you are responsible for the overall direction of your organization. Okay, there you go. All right, now let's try to discuss your managerial role. So when we speak of role, of course, it is a set of expectations for a manager behavior. So what are the managerial roles? Of course, number one, it says here to meet many demands of the organization. Okay, managers execute many different roles to achieve the goals of the organization. So according to Mintzberg, there are 10 roles subdivided into three categories. So we have your interpersonal role, informational, and decisional roles. Okay, first let's talk about your okay interpersonal roles. So if you are a manager, you have your interpersonal role. Your role could be a representative or a figurehead, okay, a leader or maybe a liaison. So for example, if you are a manager, okay, you represent your organization. So you perform ceremonial duties. You also perform um, as a manager, a motivator and encourager to your workers. Okay. Or you also perform the role of a liaison. So perhaps a manager would deal with people outside their unit. Okay. And then informational role, you also monitor. Okay, so managers scan their environment for information and then you disseminate information. That's why your role is you are also a disseminator. So you share information in other companies and you also perform the role of a spokesperson. So managers share information with others, okay, outside their departments or companies. So decisional role, so entrepreneur, disturbance handler, resource allocator, and negotiator. So you are an entrepreneur, you adopt to incremental changes. When you say incremental changes, there are small changes that may happen in the organization or changes that are incremental. Okay, so you have to make decisions or you have to make a firm decision regarding those changes. So there might also be problems that may arise in the organization, which is inevitable. So you need to handle, okay, these disturbances wisely. And then we mentioned earlier that as a manager, you allocate the resources. So you have to decide, okay, who gets what resources. And then you are also a negotiator when it comes to handling projects, schedules, etc. Okay, so this ends our first lecture. Thank you so much for listening. See you on the next lecture.